Good morning, everyone. My name's Emily Rogers, and I'm the Director of Public Policy for the DD Council. And we are glad to have you here for the last Advocacy Day of the year. I was saying a little bit earlier that it feels a little bit funny that it's the last Advocacy Day and no final decisions have been made, but here we are, and we're here to listen to all of the budget issues and see how we can advocate on behalf of the budget pieces that are important to all of us. So I just have a few reminders for today. Before we get going, please use the question and answer box for any questions you have today. It can be found in the More menu, depending on how you're accessing Zoom. We would prefer you only use the chat today for only the important links and for those that need it for accessibility reasons. We prefer that you use the question and answer for questions, and we encourage you to avoid long discussions in the chat because they're distracting. We will be taking a few questions during the program, and so feel free to jot those down for use later on in the morning. And we also need you to click the globe icon today in Zoom and select if you want to hear the program in English or Spanish, as we will as that's helpful for our interpretation. And then we also want to encourage essentially Kathy and Sean to speak slower so that our interpreters are able to get all your words for everyone involved. So thank you for being here again. And I'm not sure if, I know Sean is here, but I don't know if Eric is here.
Eric is not here this morning.
Okay, awesome. So Sean is also here. If you want to introduce yourself, Sean.
Yeah. So, hey everybody.
Good morning, everyone. I am Sean Latham from Self Advocates in Leadership, and my visual description is I'm a white middle-aged man with a red sweater on. I have a picture of the SAIL logo and SAIL members in the background. I am so happy to be here and excited to do one more Advocacy Day, and I will pass it back to Emily.
So next on our agenda is Kathy Marahashi to describe the issue and talk more about the details of the budget.
Good morning. It's nice to be here. And this is our last advocacy day for the year. It just seems really strange to be done. And it's not that there's not more work to do and there's not more session to be had and lots, but it is kind of weird to think that this is the last one for this year. It's been great to have so many advocates participate in all our times together. So I'm going to give an overview and kind of talk about some different what's happening. This is going to be a little bit more laid back. Advocacy Day. We don't have any like outside speakers coming in. And so it's just kind of us talking amongst ourselves and kind of giving it updates on what's happening and what you can do. So today's focus is on the budget. That's a really important piece right now. Let me go to the next slide. Let's talk about where we are right now. in the session. So this is the stuff that's already happened, okay? The first cutoff for the committees on, bills start on one side. And you should also know that budgets are also a bill. So it has to go through the same process bills do as a bill does. So the first cutoff was in February. They had to be out of their regular committee. Then they had to go into the fiscal committee, and that was cut off after that. Then it has to get out of whatever house. So if it's in either the House or the Senate, and it has to move over to the other chamber. But it had to be over to the other chamber by March 12th. And then, as you know, it kind of has to start all over again. And then the big news is that Monday, both the House and Senate budgets came out. So that's a big deal. They came out. Sean and I and Stacy and some of others review. The hearing was last night, and it was like 4.5 hours long. We had to wait till it was our turn. You get all of 1 minute to speak, to comment on the budget. So that's where it is right now. And I just have a couple of slides here. Let's see. And then so kind of what's next. So now that things are in the other house, it has to kind of start again, has to come out of the policy committee by April 2nd, which is just next week. So they've got all those bills that are left have to come out. And then they have to go to the fiscal committee, the money committees, and they have to be out by April 8th. So stuff's happening quick. And then they have to be out of, they have to be voted on, and all the bills have to be voted on and done by April 18th. And then, let's see. Oh, I forgot to put the date on. The last day of session is April 27th. So we have a good solid month left before things are done. And once the end of session comes, then it has to go to the governor's office to sign or veto. Now, when we talk about budgets, it has to go through these committees as well, because it's a bill. And right now, the big deal is, and the governor in our state, you heard of line item vetoes? Our governor has line item veto privileges. The federal government doesn't allow the president to do that, but our state does. So, when you're talking about budgets, he could go through and mark things off the budget, once the budget is decided. So the big deal is that, what's next, the House and the Senate have to decide their budget. And I'm going to let Sean talk about that more in a few minutes. But I'm going to stop sharing. And then I'm going to, let's see, where's my screen? I'm going to talk over. Okay, I'm going to share. I think I'm going to do the bills first, just so you can see where they are. Bill tracker. And then we'll talk about the budget. Sorry. Okay, let me make this bigger. Can you all see that now?
Nope.
Yeah, looks great. Okay, great. I can make it one more. I think one more up. If it's big enough. Is that better? Yeah, looks good. Okay, so let's talk about the various bills that are coming up. Bill 1390 is repealing the Community Protection Program. something you need to understand about that bill is that it doesn't take away the services that come with that waiver. It just will consolidate the community protection program into the core waiver services. There's been some interesting conversation about that. Is Noah here? I think I saw Noah come in.
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Do you want to talk about it a bit and what's going
Yeah.
on? It's kind of complicated.
Yeah, I can talk about it. I'm in my car outside in my coworker's house about to drive down for the rally later. So that's why I'm off camera. But the community protection bill, it had a hearing. And what the bill does is like basically what Kathy said, it will keep the services, it will create a transition plan for people who are in the community protection program to a different waiver, most likely the core waiver. And really the program was created, and it was created the same time around another program that was the Community Protection Act. So there's been some confusion around the program and the act. So the bill would change the community program, not the Protection Act. So for the hearing on the other day, everybody who testified was in support, but the con sign-in was very long because some other groups who, doesn't seem to be really involved with developmental disability issues think that this would make it so these like violent people with developmental disabilities are going to be, out roaming the streets, which is a very like negative stereotype and misconception. So we think this bill would be helpful because it would give people more access to services and lose some restrictions that the Center for Medicaid Service has also kind of reviewed and wanted Washington to take a look at. So this is DDA requested legislation to change the program. And then when we do our waiver reviews, it will change the waiver. So we think this is good. And we're just hoping it gets a vote out. It has no fiscal note, so it won't need to go to a fiscal committee. So really right now, the big to do is to get it out of its committee by the 2nd.
Yep. Thank you, Noah, for taking the time. So if that's important to you, you may want to, send your legislators a note about that. Okay, here's the really big one that's coming. For a lot of us, this is a really important and big deal. So 1472 and 5393 would close Yakima Valley School. It's an RHC and Rainier. And that's a really big deal. Those are RHCs, are residential habilitation centers, if you're not familiar. And they serve people with IDD. Most of them were built a very long time ago. They're kind of dilapidated. And there's been a history of difficulties particularly at Rainier. And, the value of having people in the community is really important. It does not close all our RHCs. There still are 2 others. And what it does is it would move people, they could move to one of the other RHCs into the community in either supported living, an adult family home, or supported living adult, or a SOLA, state operated living alternative, which is pretty much like supported living, but the workers are state employees. So, the thing about that is they get paid more. Yeah, than the DSPs. So the interesting thing is, so we understand that 1472, actually, that's not right. 3 is supposed to have, was supposed to have an executive session the 28th, which was Friday, but we just heard, and I've got to change this to, we think it's going to be on Tuesday. So both of the bills have had hearings. And they're also something called necessary to implement the budget. Sometimes bills are considered necessary to implement the budget. So that sometimes they can pass cutoffs and such because of that. And they're still there. So that's a big deal. The other piece is, and we'll talk about this in the budget time, both of them are in the budgets. So 1472 are let's see, I'm going to word it differently. The Senate had an amendment and it only says Rainier and it's in their budget. Somebody was telling me earlier that their legislator, their senator at a town hall this weekend, and mine did as well, were very clear that Rainier was going to close. And then the House took a different approach, and they have still, their bill still has, their budget still has Rainier and Yakima Valley. And so that's the difference between the two budgets. But, you know, that's a really big deal. We haven't closed an RHC since I think 2011. So, okay. 5680 is a bill that establishes the right to repair your mobility equipment, your wheelchairs. And there's Eric. Which is really cool because we know a lot of times people, from the testimony we heard, people sometimes have to wait 6 months or more to get their wheelchairs repaired. And this would allow you to go to an independent contractor or sometimes fix it yourself. And that bill had a public hearing and it's come from the other side. So it's moving along. It doesn't have an executive session. At the hearing, I noticed that there was somebody from one of the wheelchair companies that was kind of, it's like, well, you can fix the motors and stuff, but they were really concerned about people fixing the seating on it. So that somebody might, you know, get a pressure sore. But others didn't feel that that was an issue. So you might want to, if you have knowledge about that, or if that's important to you, you might want to write your legislators.
Can I say
5501.
something?
Yes.
So that's my one of my people, Dr. Marcia Cutting. She's leading the charge on that. Last night I was in a meeting with her and she said that the person named Amy Wallen
Wallen,
from the
48th, right?
she said that she has not heard enough people in
Oh,
pro for this.
okay.
Where is, yeah,
So let's see, I'm going to look for my
Consumer
chat box.
Affairs, right?
Okay. Yes.
So I reached out to a few of my people, but you know, it's not like I have a whole list of people that are using wheelchairs for mobility, but yeah, if you have feelings about it, you should be writing this
And I
person.
just put it in her email into the chat box. So if you all want to drop her a note, please do. And tell her it's important.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying that it can cause um, issues, you know, injuries, but Marcia's saying it is causing issues not to be able to repair the chair quickly.
Issues.
All right.
My daughter's a physical therapist, and you know, and I asked her about that, and she says, no, people should be okay as long as, you know, they can go. People should have the sense to know when they need to have it adjusted themselves. Yeah. So yeah, put in her email, do what you need to do. Stephanie.
I was just going to say, isn't it kind of a personal rights issue? Like when, you know, we talk about an individual who that is part of their identity and their person. It's like saying you can't cut your hair. or
Mhm.
I mean, I can't think of a good analogy, but it's a human
Yeah.
rights issue for them to be able to repair if they want, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that would be
Thanks.
good language to use.
Yeah. Emily? Emily, I see your
Oh,
hands up.
sorry, I couldn't get to the unmute.
Oh, it's okay.
So I just wanted to give like a personal story about this particular thing. I have had a broken footrest on my newer chair since November, but the company they're not repairing it, and they don't seem to I mean, obviously they don't understand the need for the footrest, and then the wheelchair company themselves seems to be having an issue. But when we went to them and said we would like to pay for the parts, they said that we couldn't pay for the parts. And so, like, in the meantime, I've had to go back to my old wheelchair, which is like close to 10 years old, that has a footrest that's working, but only working because I jury rigged it and bought the parts off Amazon.
Yeah.
So it's really like an issue, and it's really a health issue too, because I mean my legs, I still have legs even though I use a wheelchair, and they still need to be like suspended in the air. And so anyway, I mean, it just continues to be an issue. And so it's a really important bill, particularly if you're a wheelchair user and depend on the equipment to work well.
Great. Thank you, Emily. Noah?
Hi, this is Noah again. This is going to sound maybe a little bit weird, but I've heard that the committee specifically wants pictures of people in wheelchairs to go along with the written comments. What the committee has said is because I think the group that started the bill is a consumer protection group.
Yeah.
That they're saying that the wheelchair user community doesn't really care about this issue. So I talked to some folks who are working on it, and they're encouraged to send pictures of themselves or others in wheelchairs. And if the bill does die, the plan is to bring it back next year, but led by a disability rights group. And then the committee will look more favorably on it.
Oh
Okay.
my word.
So
I don't
send your
want to
pictures.
take a picture, just saying.
Yeah, and that's the Consumer Protection and Business Committee in the House. So you could look up the members of that committee and send to that committee. So send them your story, send them your pictures, and flood them. I think that will be super important. Thanks for letting us know that, Noah. That's super helpful. Um, Senate Bill 5501 concerning employer requirements for driving so what that bill does is it says, if you're putting up a job, if you're you can't make driving a requirement, having a driver's license a requirement unless the job actually requires you to drive. So, sometimes they just put that in the description, and even though it's not necessary to drive, and that keeps a lot of folks, particularly folks that are unable to drive from certain jobs. So that would take away, they couldn't do that anymore. And happy to say that's in rules to review. So if that's important to you, you might want to reach out to people on the rules committee. And it would be rules in the House. So that's good news that it's moving along. Okay. The 5253, extending special education services to students until the age of 22, has moved along to House Appropriations, which is good. It will probably have a hearing there. And then 5263 is also in House Appropriation. That's the big special ed funding bill that has a lot of different things in, and it's both the House and Senate have different things in theirs, but it expands funding specifically for special ed. And it is in House Appropriations and probably will be heard there as well. Let's see.
Kathy, I think Malia might have had a question.
Malia, yeah, go for it.
Oh, it was just about the previous one and how I love that idea about removing that driving requirement. Another one that causes that I feel is ableist is the lifting of the 20 pounds requirement
Or more. Mhm.
or more. And I just feel like that is put in there to
Yeah,
remove
you're
certain
right.
people.
That's a common thing that's they put it in, it's not really necessary to do the job. So
So
yeah,
not this year, but maybe in the future.
maybe in the future. 1217, that's the one about that limits rent and fee increases. It's the improving housing stability. It has an executive session today, right about now. So we'll see how that moves forward. It seems to have a lot of momentum. 1130, that bill is about the DD waivers, and it prioritizes different groups. It had an executive session yesterday. You may want to listen to that. It had at least a couple of amendments. I think Aaron's here. They did add the piece about adding high school grads to the priority list in that side, which we think is a good thing. There was some discussion by one of them, and we're kind of hearing this throughout in different hearings in different places. There was discussion about the True Blood class on there, and there was some objection to that. There's only like 4 legislators in the executive session, but and that amendment did not pass because they wanted to pull that piece out. So again, there's been a lot of mischaracterization of certain people with developmental disabilities and such that we probably need to pay attention to, and how they're spoken about and what they're stereotyped. So especially those with mental health and other things going on. So, and that bill, so that it did come out of executive session, and we'll move forward. So that's good. 5394 reduces the Developmental Disabilities Administration no paid services caseload. So what that means is it for those people that are on the no paid services caseload, they would not automatically have a case manager anymore. Remember, we fought to put that in a number of years ago. We wanted to make sure that those people were followed up on. I think that, and you should know it's in both the House and the Senate budget. We'll talk a little, and it does it a little differently on each of them. It doesn't, I think it leaves some skeleton crew there. But yeah, if that's important to you, you may want to, and it has an executive session today at 1:30. Okay, and I think those are the ones that we're mostly following. Okay, we're going to talk about the budget. And I want to give a little context to it before I show you. First of all, I'm going to open this up, and the things that are cuts are in red. And you're going to see a lot of red. Okay, so take a deep breath. What I do, well, a couple of things. We knew there was a big budget hole, and they're talking about the budget hole be between anywhere from 10 to 14 billion with a B. That's a lot of money. And legislators have only 2 ways to deal with it, either revenue or cuts. Okay. Both the House and Senate kind of took, and Sean's going to talk about this more in a bit, but both the House and Senate did a combination thereof, revenue and cuts. So when you look at this budget, realize if it was all cuts, it would be all red, right? And so I think yeah, so you'll want to think about that when we look at that. And the other thing that I noticed was that made me have a sigh of relief. There's actually some increases on a couple of the budgets on some things. It did not cut any of our absolutely essential services. It did not cut personal care. That would be a potential where they would cut our personal care hours or change the algorithm. And they did not make any changes to eligibility for DD, because that's one of the things they talk about, way that they could cut. You just make less people eligible. And if you look, if you saw the Democrats put out kind of a preview of what an all cuts budget would look like, and that was one of the things that they might have to cut eligibility. And so people that actually have services could suddenly not have any DDA services. That is not in either of the budgets. So I just want to give you some context when we look at it, and when we look at the all the red. So, okay, here we go. And bill tracker, where's the budget? Here we go, the budget tracker. Can you all see that? Let me make it bigger.
Thanks. Yeah, it does need to be bigger.
Okay, and I've got to make my screen a little bigger too. Okay, so Governor Inslee put out a budget first, right? And then Governor Ferguson put out his budget, and he basically took Governor Inslee's budget and then made additional cuts to Inslee's budget, and it was similar. And then the Senate came out first. I'm going to move it over just a little bit because so you'll see what's happening. Okay, so there you go. We're going to start looking right away. Red.
Okay.
Yeah. And yes, somebody's asking if this is available. But I'll pop it into the chat box. There's the link to this. And know that this is a work in progress. We're still analyzing the budget. Sometimes there's things that we are hidden there that we may have missed. So no, these are the big things that we came across. Okay, that reducing no paid services, caseload, case management, both the House, Senate and the House have that in their budget. Okay. Also on the House side, so you should know that the House had more cuts than the Senate. And that's because of how they looked at their revenue. Deanna?
Is that both caseload and case management?
No, case management.
On the no paid services. Okay.
Yeah, case management for people that are on the no. If you have a paid services, this does not impact you. Also the House there's a group of people that have what's called enhanced case management. And the enhanced case management, those folks are people that they've identified that may be more at risk, and they have a lower ratio for case management. The House bill froze the case management ratio for that group. So it goes from 1 in 33, let's see, 1 in 31 to 31 to 1 in 33. So it just expands their caseload just a little bit. It's like they get 2 more people. And then they save that much. Christy, GFS means General Fund State and Fed means federal. So what that means is the state funds is the GFS, and the federal is the federal match. So Medicaid, almost all of our services in DDA are federally matched, mostly 50-50. Sometimes you'll see that the numbers are slightly different, but that's what that means. So, okay, caseload, okay. Excuse me, there was also some caseload ratio freeze, which is the general caseload. They were planning to lower the case management ratios. It hadn't happened yet. What they said is we're not going to expand it. So it's not something that had already happened. And you'll see that a lot in this. If kind of the governor directed people, if things haven't already, if things haven't happened already, that's a good place to cut before it happens, right? If they were talking about doing an increase, let's hold off on that or delay. And you'll see that a lot through this budget. So those are that. And again, you'll see that the House side tends to have more cuts. Okay, professional guardians. So we worked last year to get funding for professional guardians. So for individuals that are at the residential habilitation centers, RHCs, or the institutions, they get, when the person is at the RHC, they actually get a higher rate payment for their guardianship, and the state pays that. When they move to the community, they lose some of that. So we had asked for this funding to kind of as an incentive for them, so that it would be kind of a less of a disincentive for them to move the person to the community. Then we got that last year, and it hadn't been implemented, it hadn't been used, and they took it back. So all three budgets there, the governor's and House and Senate. Okay, here's a really nice thing. So first of all, dehabilitation program support. The wording is really weird in all three. We don't really have dehabilitations program support anywhere in our services, but that means stuff to do in the day. And both the House and the Senate put in money for that. And what we think that means is for some help for people. We think it's a little bit of a tip of the hat, maybe to tiered rates for respite. And we're not exactly sure what we mean, but in a time when you see all this red, this is increase. This is a big deal. So they're also, I think that's a tip of the hat to say that advocates have done a good job in saying their needs were not being met for things to do in the community. So I think that is something that we need to pay attention to. And because it's in both, we'll probably see something somewhere. That's a good sign for the negotiation. For folks in adult family homes, they have completely ended, not just for people with IDD, but for seniors and adults, a program called Meaningful Day Services. Meaningful Day Services was an add-on rate for individuals who had to have a particular behavior support score to receive it. And what it was is to, they recognize the fact that, if you don't have anything to do or you're just sitting there, with nothing, that you might end up with, people might communicate that to other people in a way that may not be great. And so that was a way to enhance their daily lives. This completely wipes out that program. So the adult family home that's problematic. And it could be just in their home. It could also be to get them in the community. So that's concerning.
Hey, Kathy, can I ask a question about that one?
Hmm.
So my daughter
Yeah.
has a program, and my understanding was that once you have it, it's ongoing. So does that mean that there are not going to be any more clients eligible for it, or that it's just going to stop altogether?
Well, and I think your daughter might be on the DD, oh, what did we call it? Specialty pilot program.
Yes, that's right.
That's not the same as this.
Oh,
It's-
okay. All right.
This is a different program, but I think they probably still got this on top of that.
Yes. Okay.
But maybe, but she may not have had okay, I know your daughter, so the
Yeah,
behavior
yeah.
score, right? She may
Right.
not have actually been getting it, but there might have been others in that house.
Oh, no, she did get it. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So what it means is they'll just have a little bit less rate, but the other program, the pilot, will still be there. So the getting them out into the community. So that should be set. One of the things you're going to see in a minute is the AFH collective bargaining rate was
Yeah.
funded.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of funny. They have their collective bargaining agreement, and you'll see that in a minute how much it was. It's like they're gonna like cancel each other out.
Oh, okay.
So just yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Let's see. Assisted living rate increase, that was funded at different rates. Okay, here we go. Closing Yakima Valley School, RHC, is not in the Senate budget, but it is in the House. And that's how much they expect, to save. And then Yakima is not very much. You should know Yakima, and we learned this. There's about 36 people in the nursing home part of Yakima. There's about 10 that are in kind of a special crisis unit. We think the crisis part, those folks stay, and the overnight planned respite stays. So that's interesting. And then closing Rainier, and there you go, what the savings would look like in both of those. That's a big deal. It looks like there are high school grads funded in both the Senate and the House at different rates and different pieces. And we noticed the piece about age 22, there's some complicating things there later. It's like they made a savings because people would still be in school to 22 or something like that when they figured when the services would come. So that's why I think there was a lower amount. Okay, this is a little harder to explain, but because the budget writers don't always use consistent language in the budget, and sometimes the House and the Senate will combine one house or chamber will combine things together for a budget item, and the other one, individualize it. So sometimes it's hard to show where these things, and these next two items are kind of like that. It's like they talk about a lot of the things, and then they yeah, so that's why they're on two different lines, even though they're very similar, because the first one, on the governors talked about a rate increase for crisis diversion beds, overnight planned respite, enhanced respite for children. Okay. The House and the Senate said includes overnight planned respite, enhanced respite, crisis diversion, but it also includes community engagement, peer mentoring, and specialized habilitation. So they threw all that in. So that and increasing the rates on that, which is a good thing. So, but it's hard to tell, all the numbers there. Okay. Again, this is not a red point, right? And this is an increase in this difficult year. waiver service utilization, this House recognized, we've talked about this a lot, it's like, but we can't use our respite, or, because we can't find a provider. Well, because they have somewhere in here, they've increased respite rates. They know it's going to cost more because people will be using it more. So they have, accounted for that. So that's a good deal too. Okay. And this is another place where there's more than one line because it's hard to explain. The program underspend, employment and day. Aaron, you might want to talk about that in a second. There's big underspend here and down here in the House and the Senate, but the House included underspending of IFS waiver along with it. That's why the numbers are so inflated there. But then IFS utilization, it's down here. So there's like 3 lines. Again, it's how they categorize things. So it's a little confusing. Aaron, do you want to say anything about the underspend?
Yeah, sure. So I've spent a good amount of the last year and a half trying to really wrap my head around this and understand exactly what's going on. And really, from what I understand, I wouldn't say that underspend is quite the best way to frame what this is, that
Mhm.
the way our rates are set looks really different from how rates are set for other services across DDA. And so being an hourly based service rate that only can bill for certain time and not other time, essentially based on the rate study that the legislature did in 2022, this money that is currently in red right here on your screen should have gone out to serve people in the community. But because of how the rate is set, the hourly rate wasn't set at a rate that aligns with that rate study. And so because of that, money isn't able to get out of DDA's bank account, basically out to the community. And so essentially, we feel that it's more about, the way that the funds have been administered by DDA not being handled appropriately, instead of an underspend.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. And I know you will be working on that. The IFS, so some people may be asking and are concerned about their IFS waiver. What this does not mean, so if you are on IFS, the Individual and Family Services waiver, you have your assessment and you have an annual amount that you can use for services. The underspend and taking back of the underspend does not mean you won't be able to use all of your money. What it means is they know that people on IFS don't spend all their money, and they have been over projecting how much people will actually spend. And that's what that is. It's like, well, we're not going to count all the money that we know people aren't going to spend anyway, if that makes sense. So yeah. And that's why that utilization again is also there. It's like it mitigates the factor. Yes, people will be using that probably, and that's probably more focused on the other waivers. Community residential.
Kathy, before you
Yes.
move on, can you just say that another way? I tried to get it, but I'm not sure if I understand.
Yeah. So if you have an IFS waiver, it should not impact you. You can still use all your money in your waiver. Okay, that it's there for you. It's budgeted for you. What it does mean is it's really kind of a behind the scenes. It's like when your family budget and let's say you budget. I'm going to make a number up. Okay, $1,000 a month for groceries every month, but you consistently only spend $850, right? And you keep doing it, but the next year comes and you go to make your budget and you continue to say it's 1,000, right? But you're going to underspend. This time they say, okay, we know you're only going to spend 850. Let's just make that our budget amount, and you can move, however that works.
So they do realign the budget. They do realign each person's
Not the
allocation.
person. It's just the
Okay.
whole, but it's
Just
projecting.
behind the scenes. Okay.
It's a behind the scenes thing. They have to, like, when they plan the budget, they have to figure out how much are people going to spend, and they have to make, it's a bit of a guess, and the projection. So it's a change in the projection of what they expect people to spend. So if, my $1,000 budget, if the end of the year, I still have $1,000 if I've said that, and if I go to the $1,000, that's great. And, that's still mine to spend. If I continue to budget it, I have to, it's there. But for individuals, it should not be impactful to the actual individuals. But I think the most important takeaway you need to know. So,
Great. Thank you.
and again, we know that's because people can't get this actual service, right? And that's a problem. Like, I can't spend my money because I can't buy groceries, right? You can't buy groceries, right? Okay, this is important. Hold on, go back up here. The nursing community, residential nursing, that some of our folks in supported living and residential services need nurses, and they're really underpaid. And so the Senate recognized that and gave an increase. The House did not. And that's an issue for, again, as particularly if people are coming out of RHCs. And if you think about particularly Yakima Valley, if those folks that are in nursing facilities come out, they will need nursing care. So we need to make sure that will be something to pay attention to. Okay. Transfer to community capacity. That means they're taking money out. So when you saw the savings, how much they were going to save by closing the institutions, and it could have been a bigger number, but they're going to take some of that and move it toward the community to help those people move out. And that's what this number is money they'll save from the RHCs going to the community to help people move out. So that's really important. And they have slightly different numbers and how they figured that. So that's really important. The next item is also super important to go along with it. Community residential rates, that is for the people providing services, the DSPs, direct service providers. That's the person that comes to actually cares for them. They are, the House budget has a 3% increase. This is a whole. This is really important. And especially if people are coming into the community, we need to make sure our community has investment. Okay, here's those adult family home rate increases. This is from their collective bargaining agreement. Again, if you want to compare the numbers to the meaningful day, you can see where how much they're gaining, how much they're losing there. They're in the House budget. There's $1 million for the Dan Thompson Fund. Ta-da! That was surprising and appreciated. Good deal. There was a review in the Senate, $100,000 to make recommendations on what they should do with the Rainier when things change. Okay, this is where that funny little thing, and I think this is DDA. I got to go back and look. Yeah. DDA decided that they're going to save money because now they didn't have to serve people till 22 rather than 21. So they took it as a place that they could save in the Senate side. I'm not sure quite how that works. And you're going to see, the bill about serving students to age 22. It's all over the place in some of these things. So it's a little weird. And let's see. I'm not going to talk about that one. Let's see. There was money for culturally appropriate rehab services for tribes and DVR. Both the House and Senate are taking the cut to reduce school to work. It doesn't eliminate it. It just reduces it as they were trying to build capacity and have more folks come in. Aaron, do you want to explain?
Oh, I was just going to jump in on the DVR funding for tribes. I recently learned about this, that the way that, so there's DVR, and then there's a separate tribal vocational rehabilitation system, and most of the tribes in our state have their own VR system. But the way it's funded is really screwed up from the federal government, where basically all the tribes have to compete for a limited number of slots for getting money. And so every cycle, certain tribes get no money at all. And so DVR had requested funds to help make that not happen that way, so that all the tribes can have consistent funding over time. So just really glad to see that in there.
That's great. Good to know. And then reduction in school to work because it's not up to speed yet. Supports to, so here we go. It's like I said, this is all over the map. This is for DVR in the Senate side to support students to stay in school to age 22. There were increases to ESET, both the House and Senate. It was a little different places, and I'm not sure if I got the numbers right, but the good news is it is in both House and Senate. Is somebody from ESET here that has the actual numbers? Is Christina here? No. Okay.
Kathy,
Uh,
this is Ramona. I think I was looking at that and I was reading the text and the detail. I think they made a mistake and they included the preschool as well as ESET in that dollar figure. I think that's why that's
in the Senate side, maybe.
I think so. I think that's just an error. I don't think it's in the bill language. I think it's just in the agency detail, because I noticed in the agency detail, they only included the K-12 multiplier when they were talking about that,
Yeah.
and they didn't talk about preschool. So I think that that's why it's so high.
Okay, yeah, because I thought, wow, that just seems like a lot. I'm sure ESET would be really happy to have
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
that's early supports for infants and toddlers programming. Let's see, and that's for reflection for 63. ECAP. Okay, this was, and I may not have gotten this right. Again, ECAP, how they wrote it in the budget and the different budgets was kind of all over the place, and I may not have gotten this right. There's an ECAP underspend in the House that they were going to sweep up, and they were going to delay the entitlement date for some of the services. They were going to early ECAP reduction, which is too bad. I think that eliminates the program. But then there was an ECAP increase. We know the governor had it, but they had different increase amounts in the House and Senate. And then ECAP slot conversion expansion, which I wasn't sure, and I might have gotten this wrong. One seemed a lot more, again, I'm not sure if I got the numbers right. It did reduce what they call part day slot reduction. And then let's see if there's anything more. Oh, the dental rates for kids, again, was reduced. It was supposed to be an increase that's not going to happen. So it's not going down, but it's not going to go up, is what that means. And I believe that's the same in the adult dental. The rate's not going down, but it's not going to go up. There was nothing about the ABA, which we had before. Okay, this is a sad one. Funding is reduced for the implementation of what's called the Katie Beckett waiver. The state has been exploring that for a number of years. It was getting close to implementation. The Katie Beckett waiver is similar to our other waivers, allows people to get medical, particularly services for people with high needs that would otherwise be in an institution, it kind of hits a group of people that complex high needs that are not necessarily DDA. So that could be children with cancer, that could be children with muscular dystrophy, and other kinds of life-threatening or high care needs. And we've been hoping to have a Katie Beckett waiver for a number of years. And unfortunately, it's not stopped. They're just delaying implementation, which is disappointing. Both, and again, Ramona, you can correct me, I may not have gotten the numbers exactly right. Special ed, both of them have a lot of money. Even I think the Senate's is much higher for implementation of special education, 5263. And that moving along. Again, here we go again for special ed to 22. The Senate has it, the House does not, at least that I could find. Children in crisis in the governor's office. The governor has kind of a pot of money that's helped children in crisis. And they expanded it in both the House and Senate, which is good, or refunded it, because I think it was a short-term amount of money. So there will be money for next year. They did it at different rates. The special ed ombuds, or not special ed, the education ombuds. So last year they were going to expand their staff, and what they're going to take a cut and not expand their staff. They're not going to cut their staff, but they're just not going to fill the vacancies. So it keeps the office whole, but they aren't going to get expanded staff. Okay, everybody, catch your breath. So are there any
Can I ask? Yeah, sorry, this is Deanna. Can I ask about that age 22? So that funding is bringing it through up to the 22nd birthday, but not to the end of the school year?
Well, the bill 5253 would take it through the school year.
5253 takes it, okay.
52 takes it to the end of the school year for them. And that's why they need the additional funds.
Okay.
For that, yeah.
And the House hasn't funded that, but the Senate did?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to let Sean talk because he's got a lot. He's going to tell us what we got to do now. Okay, I'll stop sharing.
It's my pleasure. This is Eric to introduce our next guest speaker, Sean Latham. So you have the floor, Sean, and good morning to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Give me 1 second. And I'm there. Working with a lot of stuff.
This is Sean. I want to start by showing you one last time the 2025 Legislative Advocacy Tips video.
Brother, so loud button. There we go. Oh. Hello.
Hi, I'm Sean Latham, the Policy Coordinator for Self-Advocates in Leadership.
And I'm Jessica Renner from Self-Advocates in Leadership.
We want to thank everyone for taking your time out today to join us for Advocacy Days. We're here to talk to you about how to become a trusted resource for legislators on issues affecting your life. Even though your elected officials represent you, they can't do this very well if they don't know what you want. We want to encourage you to contact your legislators throughout session, but especially this week, about the issues that matter to you.
That's right. With so many topics for legislators to learn about, your knowledge of developmental disabilities helps them to do their job. You are the expert in telling your story and how it relates to decisions they are making. Here are some tips to help you make the most impact. Your time with legislators, staff, or aides is short, and your message should be too. When you communicate, sum up what the issue is and why it's important to you. Have a specific request related to a bill or budget item. Attack the problem, not the person. Follow up with a thank you. By doing this, you greatly increase your credibility and strengthen your legislative relationships. Bottom line, stick to what you know, which is your life, and how the issue affects you.
Here are some ways that you can reach out to your legislators. You can email them and their legislative assistant about your priorities. You can contact them through the legislative hotline phone number, which is 1-800-562-6000, and ask to leave a message for them. You can also share your opinion on a particular bill by using the hotline. We also encourage you to request either an in-person meeting with your legislators or a meeting with them over Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Please reach out to the legislative assistant of the legislator to request a meeting. You can watch the legislature at work on TVW, either on your TV, if you have the channel, or online at tvw.org. Another way you can participate is by signing up to testify at legislative hearings. For each hearing, you can sign up for the individual bills as pro, meaning you are for the bill, con, meaning you are against the bill, or other if you have concerns with the bill you generally like.
Let me now take you through the process using the Washington State Legislative website that can be found at leg.wi.gov. On the website, under the menu, click on the menu item that states Bills, Meetings, and Session. From there, scroll down to the section titled Upcoming Committee Meetings and click on the link titled Sign into a Committee Meeting. Next, choose if you are testifying in a House hearing or testifying in a Senate hearing. We all have the choice to testify in person, testify by video remotely, or we can submit written testimony or just state what our position is on the bill.
After you pick one of the options, you will be taken to the form to register. You will need to fill out your position, your name, your email, your address, your phone number, and your organization, if you are representing one. It also asks you if you will testify on a panel or not. If you are testifying on a panel, it will ask you to fill in the names of the other panelists. The other box to make note of is the pronunciation box. If you want your name said right, you can sound it out in that box. Please check the box "I'm not a robot" at the end of the form, and then it's time to hit Submit Registration. Once you submit your registration, you will receive an email from a committee staff email address. Please read this email carefully and add the meeting to your desired calendar using the links in the email. From there, make sure you are ready to testify.
Don't forget about social media. A lot of legislators have accounts on Facebook and Twitter where you can comment or watch live stream chats and virtual town halls.
It's so important to stay informed and involved. Participate in virtual advocacy days, sign up for the Arc of Washington's action alerts, get updates at arcwa.org, and follow on Facebook. Connect with local parent and self-advocate groups. And remember, change is made by those who show up.
Thank you, Sean. That's awesome. Our next guest speaker, I would like to. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm not done yet. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, I don't.
I want to highlight a few more things in detail on the legislature website. If you need help to find your legislators, click on the Legislators tab like I'm doing now. By the way, if someone raises their hand, I will need someone to tell me because of my screen.
So I'm gonna do a few things.
I am then going to click Find Your Legislative District.
I'm gonna click on that.
I'm going to type in an address. Since I don't want you all to stalk me, I will do the Arc of Washington's address. And then I will press Find My District.
And Avenue. Bible. Fine. And
As you can see, it shows me not my state legislative district, which is number 22, but it also shows me my federal congressional district, which is number 10.
State and election. Congressional.
As you can see, it shows me not my state legislative district, which is. For this page, you can click on your representatives and senators to find out their contact information, what their particular issues are, and what bills they sponsored or co-sponsored. Now I wanted to share an alternative way to do this, which allows you to message all of your legislators at once. This is by going to the Arc of Washington website, clicking on the Advocacy drop-down menu, and clicking on Action Alerts. You can then choose one of the action alerts, such as Medicaid as a lifeline. Once you click on that, you can type in your information as we did before. And each action alert will send your message to the people that need to hear it. In this case, since Medicaid is a federal issue, this will go to all of your federal legislators. Now, one thing to note: if you know your legislator's name, all you need to do from an email message is type their first name, then put a dot, then type their last name, then type at leg.w.gov.
And that's for all the legislators. Okay.
It is also a good idea to send their legislative aide the email as well.
I'm very happy to do that. Yeah.
Then you will need to click on the All link in the Members section.
Oh, sorry, I missed one. So the first thing is you have to go to the Washington page on the table and go to the website. You go to the members all like I'm doing. Sorry, it's a little bit slow today. I think I have too much going on, I guess. And then
Now, one thing to note: if you know your legislator's name, all you need to do from an email, then you will need to click on the All link in the Members section.
and then you have to click on this.
And unfortunately, they got a little tricky. They hid the legislative aides, but if you click on the down arrow on the right side, You can check you want to add the legislative assistant and their emails.
I used to put it on the default, but now you have to select them.
The legislative assistant email will again by first name dot last name at leg.w.gov.
So the same thing. I think I can start there. If people want to know more about that, you can email me after. Let's see.
Okay, so let's move from this to my normal talk. Today's topic is all about the budget. As Kathy explained, our state is facing a budget deficit, and not a simple easy one either. As our one-pager states, the state has both a moral and legal obligation to protect and provide for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. We must tell our legislators today to protect residential services, supported living, in-home supports, medical supports, and other key supports that keeps people in the community and leading a meaningful life. The one-pager goes on to say these services function as a critical safety net, protecting the health and stability of individuals with I/DD and their families. Without this safety net, families are forced to make impossible choices, such as quitting their jobs to care for loved ones, which can result in individuals being placed in emergency rooms, jails, homelessness, or inappropriate settings. This is a crisis that can be prevented by maintaining robust community supports. Okay, so let's move from this to my normal talk. Today's topic is we must fight now, and I mean fight everyone, to make sure that our support services are not cut, that we have a stable and healthy workforce, that we have the need housing and attached services so people can move into the community, that we ensure that schools are truly inclusive, accessible, and equitable by investing in special education, and that we provide opportunities for people to get jobs, be supported at them, and at the same time that we provide opportunities for people to get out and socialize in our community. In short, these next few weeks, we need to make our voice loud and clear. Last night, both the House and Senate had their budget hearings for their proposed budgets. While the hearings are over, at least for the operating side, you can still let your legislators and others know right now why protecting services matters. Over the next few weeks, leaders in the House and the Senate, along with, I believe, some governors' staff, will decide the final 2-year budgets. Some key legislators to reach out to now are Representative Jay Fitzjobbin, Representative Tim Ormsby, Senator June Robinson, and Senator Jamie Pedersen, who will be the ones most responsible for crafting the final budget. At the end, the top leaders are generally the ones running the show for the budget, and since Democrats have power in both the House and Senate, their leadership has most of the power. This isn't to say your legislators aren't essential to reach out to, but these 4 will be the key ones negotiating the final budget. And since our legislators have to balance our budget, they are left with a difficult choice. As Kathy said, cuts will be made this year and programs might be suspended or delayed. However, our legislators can soften the blow with raising some taxes. Yes, I know taxes aren't popular, but we need some extra revenue to protect vital services from being cut more drastically. I personally feel that when tax revenue is used properly to support those in need, it is worth paying more. We must protect our vital services. Like always, I will end this way. We encourage you this week to reach out to your legislators about the topics you heard today and the program and services needed. We all need to succeed. I will add again, It's very important to reach out to all of our legislators to educate them about our issues. Sharing your personal stories is one of the best ways for your legislators to get to know what you need. For more information about these and other issues you learned about today, I'm going to post this week's one-pager in the chat. Also, again, please see the ARC's bills of interests.
Okay, now, Eric. This is
All right, thank you, Sean. Our next speaker is Catherine Murahashi, I believe.
Yeah, I think Sean and I were just, following up about the things that you can do. Sean did a great job of talking about kind of the big picture. If there's bills that are important to you, we talked earlier about the one about the right to repair and maybe, getting word to Amy Wallen about that being important to you. I think the big piece that we're following is what's happening with the residential habilitation centers. I think Bill 1472 is going to have what's called an executive hearing. It was supposed to be scheduled, I think, for Friday, and then it's gotten moved, I think, till Tuesday. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But what we're hearing is that, there's a lot of new legislators who don't know a lot about the RHCs. So if you have, particularly in the House Early Learning and Human Services Committee, legislators, it's a good time to educate them about your thoughts and why it's important. I'm going to put some information. The DD Council has put together a really nice, I've got to find it now. Hold on. Where'd it go? Sorry. Kind of a, what do I call it? It's an index of information about the RHCs. It's got like information sheets. It's got links to a whole bunch of stuff, everything you could possibly think about. It's got links to success stories. Oh, great. I think I put it in there already. Sorry. That is a really good resource for you. If your legislator has questions, you can go in there and find information, or you could direct them to that information. And I think also to watch for when the hearing in either Ways and Means or Appropriations comes. When that comes, probably you'll want to sign on to those bills, and you can go in and, just like Sean showed in the video, how to sign on to a bill, because there will be lots of people there signing on, some pro and some con, and you can let your thoughts be made known. Yeah, so I think that's the big piece. I think letting your legislators know about, what you think about cuts. And, it's okay in some cases to if you look at some of those budget cuts and know that, that they didn't cut essential services, to thank them for that. Other things that you may like in the budget, you can talk about specific things that you don't like. Now is the time, this is the time of session to really educate, to educate folks. Let's see, are there other things in our agenda that we wanted to talk about? Sean, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, but three left.
Yeah.
So,
The way I like to do messaging is to first say who I am, and if I'm representing anyone, then I will say if I'm for or against something. For example, accessible transportation, I am for. I will then list a few reasons why I am for accessible transportation, like I need it to go to work or go to the movies with friends. I may, if there is time, answer a few questions from those against, like, oh no, transportation costs too much. Well, if people can't leave their house, they might not be able to get to work and make income and pay taxes, or they might not get to medical appointments, which will lead to more costly expenses for our government. It is key when you are messaging to know how long you have to talk. A meeting in an elevator may only give you a minute. Messaging at a legislative hearing may give you a few minutes if you are lucky. A meeting at a legislator office may give you 15 minutes, and taking your legislators to coffee may give you the most time. I would also add, if you are emailing your message, put your key information first. Maybe use bullet or numbering, and don't give too much information unless you are asked. People, including legislators, are just overran by email and don't read anything. I want to add, when you are discussing and advocating with your legislators, it's important to know you are negotiating. You may tell them, please close all DD institutions first, but over time you may need to compromise with them. Start high so you can compromise in the middle. If you remember that tip, you won't get so disappointed if you don't get everything you need.
And then I was going to talk a little bit about why holding Rainier is important. And this is why
When people ask me why Rainier and Yakima Valley should be closed, I answer this way. Rainier and Yakima Valley should close to residents because it's an outdated model to house and support people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We can support people better now in smaller settings, closer to transportation, and make it a lot more personalized for individuals. This and the fact that Rainier had several abuse claims over the years, as your station King 5 reported about in 2016 with the last of the institution series. We and other disability organizations believe it's easier to monitor smaller community settings versus larger congregate settings like Rainier. I was almost put in an institution soon after I was born, but my parents said no. I think my life would be drastically different. I wouldn't have gotten a Bachelor of Science degree in social services at Central Washington University. I wouldn't have gotten jobs helping those with disabilities to lead more independent lives. I most likely wouldn't have served on several state councils, including the Developmental Disabilities Council. And I wouldn't been able to travel to Washington, D.C. and other places to advocate at all levels in order to make our country more accessible and welcoming to people with disabilities. Finally, what I would say to parents who feels they need to stay open, I will say that I feel for them and the challenges they have to face for their sons and daughters. I really believe in the long run, though, being out in the community with the variety of residential settings is better. I do think that we must as a state do a better job with system navigation for these families. People need help finding the best fit. We must also pay all direct service professionals a living wage and make sure that the trainings they receive are adequate for serving a diverse population of those with disabilities. When these things happen, people like myself and my girlfriend, Julie Clark, who is in supported living, will be able to lead a full, meaningful life in the community. I will add too that we can still do respite care, crisis care, and medical and dental things using the smaller piece of the institution, like at Yakima Valley, or even better at community buildings.
And so that was kind of an example of messaging for me. The only other
Yeah.
the only other thing I have is the survey.
Oh yeah, let's get the survey. So we'll take questions here, but let's run our poll. And thank you for doing that because it helps us to give information to our funder. Okay, I'm going to launch it right now, and then we can open it up for people to ask questions or whatever. And thank you all. Thank you for so many of you that have come to all the advocacy days and participated. We appreciate all you do. So it should just take you a few minutes to do the survey. You can either do it the Zoom, or you can use the link in the chat box. And the chat box has the one to Spanish as well. Brandy.
Hi, folks. I'm Brandy Moss with the DD Council. I just wanted to throw out huge kudos to the CAC Advocacy Day team this year. You folks rocked it. It's the last one, and you did such a great run this year. I'm so proud to call you colleagues and say, look at this program that the ARC and SAIL and the DD Council collaborate on. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
And I apologize for being late this morning, Kathy. I was trying to do something and